Hey, and welcome to the Weed Out, where we weed out the bullshit and talk about the nonsense happening in our backyard. I'm Spencer Fox Peterson, as always, with my partner.
Hi everyone, I'm Joanna May Booty.
And today on the Weed Out, we are going to be having a discussion with Katie Talbot of Neighbor to Neighbor, a nonprofit organization run to empower citizens, and it's not funded by the government or federal grants. It is funded through foundations and donations, and it is a member-run organization. It's a wonderful organization that's helping organize people in the Holyoke Springfield area and across Massachusetts to fight the powers that be through legislation and advocacy work. So, Joanna, before we get into it, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking, and I hope the same for everyone else.
So, Katie, welcome.
Thanks.
How are
Hi.
you doing today?
I'm well. Yeah, the sun's shining. It's pretty warm. I'm good. Yeah, thanks.
Um, so where this is being recorded March 6th, we've interacted with Neighbor to Neighbor over the last couple of years as activists. And it's been interesting to see your work take shape. And basically fighting uphill battle against politicians and landlords and the general capitalists on the in this capitalist hellscape. We need organizations that are member run and focus on the needs instead of typically NGOs funded by the government. They may be on paper doing the right thing, but they have leverage being held against them because they need their funding. I personally have worked for nonprofits on a board regarding foster care. So there's a nonprofit based out of Hadley, and they advocate for legislation regarding foster care and DCF. Now, that organization is tied into more powerful politicians like Richard Neal, and it's hard for them to really speak up. They do a lot of great work, but it is a challenge when you're constantly fighting for funding from legislators while also at the same time arguing with legislators. So we're glad to have an organization like Neighbor to Neighbor who's not tied like that, but we also are really heartened about their work regarding teaming up with the tenants union and organizing for people in Holyoke. We've actually had an interview last fall with J.R. Rivera, who's a organizer with the tenants union who's worked closely with Katie in the past. And we're just here to hopefully give a platform. And as always, we're going to let Joanna take over the questions, and I will just be interjecting as an audience surrogate. So please take it away.
Thanks, Spence. Thank you for being here, Katie. Again, Neighbor to Neighbor, I have learned is a statewide organization, but please correct me. And if you wouldn't mind letting the audience know your specific role at Neighbor to Neighbor and where specifically you work in Western Mass.
Yeah, thanks. I'm the lead organizer with Neighbor to Neighbor. We have 4 chapters statewide: Lynn, Worcester, Springfield, and Holyoke. I specifically work in Springfield and Holyoke. I started as a member of Neighbor to Neighbor, but when it came on staff, it was only in Holyoke about 4 years ago, and just started organizing in both cities. It's been about a year now, so.
That's awesome. Like Spence said, we've seen a lot of advocacy from Neighbor to Neighbor. And when we were working on stuff on our own, you were a group that we immediately saw, and we saw that you were present in Western Mass and working on similar issues. And we thought that was so exciting. I guess for the audience, could you explain what exactly Neighbor to Neighbor is in terms that would make them kind of understand, maybe a 2-3 second or 2-3 sentence kind of explanation? I know that can be hard, so go as long as you'd like, but in a nutshell explanation, I guess.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know if I can do it in 2 and 3 seconds.
So as much as you need, lady.
I also want to like flag that I was a member of Neighbor to Neighbor for 10 years, so like I have this very deep not just like professional, but emotional and self-interest connection to this organization. Neighbor to Neighbor is a grassroots member-based power organization. So we do our work in two spheres. One, we get involved in legislation. We get involved in the political process, trying to get our people elected to office. Who better to change things than those have been deeply impacted by the powers that be. And then we also work to build the new, right? Like, if we're constantly fighting and fighting and fighting, it gets exhausting. There's little to no joy in that. So in the last few years, we've transitioned to not just working in legislative and political, but also like starting to build things with our member base. A community garden here in Holyoke. We're looking to start a community land trust in Holyoke, supporting the tenants union, things like that, so that it's not just a constant fight, that we're able to like tap into our imagination and creativity as well.
That's fantastic. And I know there are obviously a number of action items or action requests that Neighbor to Neighbor are working on in different communities. So I know at Springfield and Holyoke, there are tenants union issues, and that's the issue that I'm most familiar with. But I know in the past you've tackled things and we've worked with you, but I guess, are there any other current issues besides the tenants unions, that you're working on here in Western Mass that you would want to let the community know about and kind of give more information?
Again, I came into Neighbor to Neighbor in 2010 after my first incarceration. I would go to jail a few more times, but we used to do a lot of work around criminal justice and prison reform, and we're getting back into it. There's a lot of work in the state of Massachusetts around changing a very, very broken system. So we're looking through some state legislation to see what we really want to get behind. We also have a long history in Holyoke and throughout Massachusetts of working on environmental justice issues. Shortly before I came on as a member, Neighbor to Neighbor was instrumental in shutting down a very, very polluting coal plant here in Holyoke. And not just shutting it down, but transitioning it to what was the largest municipal owned solar field in the state of Massachusetts at the time. So we are doing a ton of work around housing, but we also criminal justice reform, super fucking important to me and our members, as well as environmental justice issues.
I would say prison abolition and at least change to the system for now would be the most I could hope for. I've been a prison abolitionist since I was 25 because I have met a number of family members who have been incarcerated. So I'm very familiar with the system as well. And so I'm so thankful that Neighbor to Neighbor focuses on that, as well as a number of other organizations in Western Mass. When you talk about reform or change, what are the key points that you're hoping when you focus on, I guess, tackling the criminal justice system here in Massachusetts?
Yeah, so a total overhaul of like our current system would be a great start. That is a long road. We really spend a lot of time trying to change the narrative of who gets incarcerated, who is incarcerated, and like how the population of those incarcerated has been targeted, right? So really just trying to let the vast majority of the community know that like it's not these hardened, awful people. It's a bad decision, right? Like one bad decision.
And just this is my interjection, even if it was a bad system, it doesn't reform. It's a feature of the system to create recidivists. And if we wanted to reform, it would look a lot different.
Oh yeah. And yes, I have been doing criminal justice reform work, and it's a corny ass name, right? Like criminal justice reform work, because agreed, Spencer, like the system is working exactly how it's supposed to work, right? And so it doesn't need to be reformed. It needs to be like burned down and started again. But I've been doing that work for a long time. And one of the things, a couple years ago, we started doing work to re-enfranchise felony conviction. here in Massachusetts, and the conversations we had about folks that are incarcerated was really sad and like disheartening. So we've been doing a lot of just community conversations around like who is incarcerated, and trying to remind people that like they're humans, they're somebody's mama, somebody's dad, somebody's kid, you know. But around specific legislation, there was a prison moratorium that passed the Senate, the state legislation last session. It went in front of Governor Baker, who vetoed it. So we're working to make sure that prison moratorium gets passed again this session. There's free phone calls that folks who are incarcerated should have access to. The amount of money that is generated from people trying to stay connected to community, to family, is disgusting. It's 10 cents a minute after a $3 connection. So 10 cents a minute to talk to your dad who's incarcerated, or your wife, you know. So we're working on that. There's also some other stuff around making sure folks that have been arrested but were found innocent, or the case was thrown out, their records are actually sealed, because if you've ever been arrested, if you've ever had a charge against you, you have a quarry, even if it's not a guilty. So those are some of the things. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Katie is out there talking to other civilians and community members about who these people are, and remind them of their humanity. And we are fighting a giant uphill battle. Propaganda, literally everything that comes out of anything you see on TV, even in especially in entertainment, where you're disarmed and you're not thinking critically, you're there to turn your brain off. We're being inundated constantly that police go after rapists and killers, and their clearance rate on those cases are low. They do not solve those problems. And then the rest of the people that are in jail for either not being able to pay the fines, the fees, actually did something maybe violent. And yes, should they face consequence for harming another human? Of course. But how is our system isn't victim based. I doubt a lot of victims want to see somebody they got in a heated. I know when I've gotten in altercations, and I drive for a living, so I've had some road rage incidents. Not me personally, I've been a victim, but having bystanders say, do you want me to call the cops? And I'm like, fuck no. Like, even though this person's in my face and angry at me, no, I do not want them to fucking go through this for having being stressed out because of our economic system, and then the byproduct is lashing out at other civilians, because you can't fight power, but you can punch across to a fellow civilian. So I don't know, that's just my thing. And I think fighting against propaganda, and every time I have a chance to mention that everything you watch is propaganda, literally everything, even the most benign stuff, we all think about throwing people in jail as the first and only recourse, and we need to unframe that so that we can see these people as humans.
Yeah, Spencer. So I don't know if y'all saw the Holyoke Police Department Facebook last week. Holyoke recently put shot spotters in the city. Used ARPA money to pay for it. It is a system that doesn't work. It is a for-profit company that like just sells this false sense of safety to people. Anyway, they ended up arresting someone over the weekend, right? This 20-year-old kid. And the propaganda they put forward was, thank goodness we had shot spotters. Otherwise, we would not have been able to get this gun and violent criminal off of the street. It's a 20-year-old kid that's like crying in his mugshot. Like, yeah, super fucking violent, you know? So agreed about the propaganda.
I would say it's constant, and it's in most communities. Holyoke definitely does not follow any, in my opinion, like ethical guidelines in terms of mugshots or anything else. I don't know. I think that overall the PR out of the administration and the police department in Holyoke is embarrassing. Just for the mayor and the entire force. If you really cared about your community and you had that amount of tax dollars coming in my personal opinion, you would be working for the community members and not trying to scare people into accepting technology, like Katie mentioned, that is shown statistically by multiple third party investigative and towns, local towns. We've had someone on from Pittsfield who, Pittsfield's on the line now for, I think, like $250,000 a year now extra just to pay for that. So we had worked with you on that too. I don't know what we can do about this except for express our concern to these institutions like the police department or the administration at Holyoke and let them know. But I know that I have heard from those administrations that some community members like to hear this information. So that part's hard too.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like the way we go about policing today is not working. The problem with not being able to want to acknowledge that and like figure out a way forward, right? Like there's this such a like tight wall between the police and like what we know. It'll never change if like the police department don't want to accept like it's not working. We had a meeting with Chief Pratt before the shot spotters went up, and one of our concerns was like the power that police officers are going to have to harass and impede on other people's freedom because of these shot spotters, right? Like, what are you going to do if a shot spotter goes off and there's people hanging on the street? You're telling me that the police aren't going to like hem them up and be like, what's going on, blah blah blah. And Chief Pratt says, well, our police officers still have to uphold people's rights. And I said, if you think that your police officers never cross the line, right? Like if you think that your police officers have never followed someone home, has never showed up at someone's work just to intimidate, then you're out of your mind. And he says, well, we don't have complaints of it. Well, come to find out, they do have complaints of it. They just don't do any investigation, right?
Right.
So like there's all this ability to be like, yeah, let's talk about how to fucking change things. And then when you have a city councilor that like is boisterous about what their experience was for a whole community, and then they get called a threat, then there's like press releases and press conferences about how awful it is that a city councilor called the police department a gang, right? It's just, yeah, it's mind-blowing to me, like the inability to just have a conversation about like this isn't working.
Also,
yeah, go ahead.
The priority of looking for guns in a country that has more guns than people is, to me, they don't go at, I'm sorry, like the numbers bears out, the eye test bears it out. They do not police white people in poor neighborhoods about guns the same way they do. I know they find white guys with illegal guns or guns they have, but they're acting have legally, but are acting inappropriately. Yes, there are anecdotes, there are outside things, but if you live in a poor neighborhood, like let's just work this down. This is the way my brain works. You will live in a poor neighborhood. The only thing we have is the Second Amendment. That is your last line of defense. And the fact that we spend all this money looking for quote unquote illegal guns, all like you brought up the example of shot spotter goes off, whether it's a gunshot, a car backfiring, just a misread, doesn't matter. A lie. The police could just say there was one and they want to break up a bunch of dudes on the street, right? And hope that nobody records requests that. I'm not saying they've done that or will do that. I just, there's a million things that could happen. They're going to show up and they're going to say, we have a report of a gun going off. Everybody show us your weapons. And that's a violation of your Fourth Amendment. You're on the street and you're being because there was a credible report of a gunshot. Now you don't have the right to privacy nor the right to carry. And I'm not a big everybody should have guns person, but I'm just being pragmatic. I'm on my soapbox now, but if you have the right to carry in a country, we spend a lot of fucking resources policing little minor infractions while we have mass illegal guns being moved around the country and down to Mexico. This is all like, that's where the illegal gun shit should be snuffed out and not random people on the street. And also, like, I don't know, if a gunshot goes off in a poor neighborhood, why isn't the assumption somebody was fucking defending themselves? If that was George Zimmerman, right? I don't know. That's just like where I'm at, and I think it's a big thing to have a conversation with people in our community. I understand it's scary. Guns are scary, but like, let's also be honest with ourselves. Our gun culture is what it is. It's out of control, in my opinion, but we can't just put that back in the bottle. So I don't know. I would, Chief Pratt to me and Joanna's not a he's not a Joanna, what's the word? I don't want to be like this.
I mean, I would say a clown, but that's just like being a bitch. But like, in all honesty, if I contacted a police officer and I can call myself a bitch. Don't you do it, Chief Pratt, if you're listening. I feel like it's clownish as a leader, as someone who's been a leader before in tough positions where you have to talk to others who may have issues with that's going on. I've also been a citizen in a number of communities in Western Mass and outside of Massachusetts, and have spoken to a number of police chiefs when I have had issues with things, and they typically will actually respond and talk to me. He's one of the first that will just not address anything. And like Katie mentioned, the complaints that were recently brought out by Dusty Christensen's reporting that show that they really, if you complain to them, they're not going to do anything about it anyway. And the right to carry, Spence, I do agree that we supposedly have rights, but the police lie and can honestly really do whatever they want, as we all know. So it's hard for me. I love that you have that optimism and hope there, but in my opinion, the ShotSpotter technology is another tool of the broken criminal justice system to keep it working as efficiently and effectively as it currently is, in my personal opinion. And I'm so thankful that Katie and you, Spence, highlight that. I'm really just glad that Neighbor to Neighbor made the community aware about that. So Katie, I guess I wonder, in terms of ShotSpotter and stuff, that will only be a year, and then will Neighbor to Neighbor go back and hopefully speak to the administration about like, okay, this is a joke, please get rid of it?
I think it's actually a 2-year contract
Okay,
that we
sorry.
signed up for. Yeah, I think it's a 2-year contract. It is something that we are continuously having a conversation with Mayor Garcia about. We had put forth the desire to expand our public safety department. If you're going to do ShotSpotters, right, then we want this money to expand a community response team, like real solutions, right? Let's do an audit of dispatch to see how many calls are actually coming in that could be diverted from the police department to somewhere else. And we were denied, right? Like we were, told that we don't have the money for it. We'll think about it. So it'll be a conversation we continuously have, as well as like made it very clear that there needs to be facts. Like if we're gonna move past like a 2-year contract, there needs to be real hardcore facts that like this is actually working. Because it's wild. I had conversations with community members that had no idea that there was a ShotSpotters coming, right? And just asking, no probing, no coaching. What do you think would be a better solution? Like what would be a good solution to dealing with the violence over here? And everyone, I don't know, more cops walking around, better relationships with the police, jobs, better housing, right? At no point did anyone say like, we need ShotSpotter technology, or we need the police department to have better guns, or we need the police department to have, oh God, what were those things that got stolen? The little like scooter things that the police department got a few years ago.
What?
Yeah, they got, what are they called? They're like, I know you've seen, they've been in, I think they were in like Mall Cop.
Oh yeah. The oh fuck, what are those things called? They're Segways.
Holyoke Police Department got Segways stolen. Right? So like no one in the community is like, oh, we need the police department to have more money for better equipment, right? Because they also acknowledge, like, they haven't been good with the equipment that they've had. The amount of cameras that are in the city of Holyoke that don't work, right? Like, people
want a money laundering scheme, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Big contractors and stuff. I'm not saying the individuals are involved, like the actual rank and file cops, but like.
No, it's companies like ShotSpotter, right? That like sell a city this idea of safety just to make a shit ton of money, right? People want to feel safe. People want to feel safe. Everybody wants to feel safe. So if you sell them this idea of like a quick fix, who the fuck is going to say no? I'm going to say yes. Like I want to feel safe. And like, if I don't have to do anything for it, yeah, I'm going to sign up. But that's not going to work. And it's not just like the police department. We're so like capitalism has allowed for militarization in all of the areas of our lives, right? Like if you're getting evicted from your house, who comes? The sheriff department, the police come. Like, so even our housing has become militarized.
Right.
Yeah,
And like
sorry.
even in capitalism, surveillance capitalism is a whole different discussion. It's not so for example, in Northampton, they recently signed a contract to get cloud-based dash cam and body cam, and like it's a little more streamlined. And basically how it works is this information that this dragnet is catching all day, every day that the police are out in force goes to a cloud, which then can be subpoenaed by ICE or DOJ. And Northampton's a sanctuary city, supposedly. So then the police have that local police department doesn't own that data. It goes to a third party, and then that's easy to subpoena. So we live in surveillance capitalism. I mean, Ring camera with Amazon, this has been written about a bunch of times. It's like the cops literally have a direct line to the camera in your front door. Like they can, it is some real 1980s Hollywood, like sci-fi fucking scary shit, but we've been sold it as safety. And at the end of the day, the only thing that can make us safe is interconnected communities where people care about each other. That's how it's historically worked.
Yeah, and resources, right? Like if my house, if I feel safe in my home, if I'm well paid, if my mental and physical well-being is taken care of, right? Like it's not dumping shit tons of money into the police or other militarized capitalism, right? It's like taking care of the whole being within a whole community.
Right. And if you don't have to leave your community to go to work, for example, like I live in Holyoke, right? But I have to drive to Northampton to go to work, and that's fine. I like my job. It is what it is. But how much better would it be if I worked 32 hours a week? I didn't have to leave my city. I would probably know more people in the city just on my commute or my walk to work or whatever. And I would save a lot of time and money from having to go all the way. So like we need jobs. We need reasons to, and not just jobs, because that feeds into the capitalist nature, but we need our stuff to be local. And that's how we build strong bonds with everybody. And everybody will see each other as human, and they're not seeing the guys up in front of the Walgreens begging for money as this nuisance. I don't see them as a nuisance. I see them as my neighbors, and I talk to them. They're one of the few people I have connection with in my neighborhood. Like everybody on my street works full time, and we're all grinding. Like we see each other go in our cars, and that's it. I have a better relationship with people on my commute to work than I do with my own neighbors, and that's a feature of capitalism, to isolate us all. So not to get all big picture on it, but the solution to safety is what you're saying is invest in the community, invest in the community, invest in the community. Not more toys for Chief Pratt. That's a direct quote. He thinks he's a kid on Christmas. That was reported by the Shoestring. Chief Pratt, just full disclosure, wouldn't even show up to a meeting with Joanna and I. He bailed, and he sent 2 community members from the police oversight board in his stead, or the mayor and him arranged that. I don't know how it actually worked behind the scenes, but like, that's why Joanna called him a clown. I have stronger words for him. I think he is deluded on the propaganda himself, that he thinks he's making a difference in the community, and also like he's drunk on his own power. So I'm glad you're getting FaceTime with him. I'm grateful.
It was not planned FaceTime. We had set up a meeting with the mayor, with a bunch of neighbor to neighbor members around the shot spotter, and the mayor sideswiped us with like bringing all these other people, including Chief Pratt, to the meeting. I will say it was a really funny meeting because we went in there and everybody, you could tell that there was like this split of like everyone who was like on the mayor's side. Yes, shot spotter, we absolutely want it. And like neighbor to neighbor folks. Not even halfway through that meeting, everyone that was on Josh's side was like, yeah, we actually do need more police walking the street. We actually do need to look at how how we're who's responding to what. We actually do need to expand our public safety ideas versus just this, right? So the meeting was like set up like to like sideswipe us, and it didn't quite work out that way. We left with some new allies.
So Josh is a big fan of taking over the meetings and bringing in people that he would like to support him when you call for a meeting with him. That's all I'm going to say on that meeting. I've had a similar one, as Spence mentioned. And if, that's an unfortunate leadership skill, in my opinion, too. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Katie, I'm so thankful that Neighbor to Neighbor makes the things that they are making people aware of, like out there in the communities, putting it out there, letting people kind of absorb information, if especially with ShotSpotter, because I know like Holyoke was using ShotSpotter's data to like also like the same company's data to make it seem like it worked. And I think on top of that, I just want to add, like for people listening in Holyoke, the overtime pay to the police department as well is astounding. And there are multiple like reports you can find on that. I guess because we talked about the police and the criminal justice like work that you do. You mentioned community gardens, tenants union work. I guess I would just like to know a little bit more about how, if I were someone in the community, I wanted to get involved with Neighbor to Neighbor, how could I do that? Where could I go? And all of those fun things. If I really didn't know very much and I listened to this podcast, and I was like, how can I get a hold of Katie and get involved in some of these awesome things? What would I do?
So I just want to like highlight that you just talked about the overtime. City Council has approved more than $1 million in overtime in this fiscal year. And then the police audit turns around and calls them a threat, right? Like they have like co-signed your overtime for all these months, and then you call them a threat because you didn't like what they said. So anyway, that's a side note. I will just plug, I don't know when this will be airing, but on March 21st, we will be having a housing rally in front of City Hall on Dwight Street. We want an office of tenant protection here in Holyoke. We want fucking rent control in the state of Massachusetts. So we're gonna have a rally, 4 o'clock, March 21st, in front of City Hall. We have our Neighbor to Neighbor monthly member meetings, always on the third Wednesday of the month. It'll be March 15th this month at the Holyoke Library. So it's super accessible. We also do it over Zoom so that it's hybrid. Yeah, we have we are supporting the strengthening and building of the Tenants Union of Western Mass, which has their at-large meetings the 2nd and 4th Wednesday at Nueva Esperanza, 401 Main Street in Holyoke. That's at 6 o'clock. You can always reach me at my email, Katie, Katie, at N2NMA.org. All of our stuff is open for new folks. Even if you're like, I'm not quite sure I want to be a member, like come through, meet some new people, find out what's happening. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, sugar. Oh, sorry. We finalized on the Dwight Street Garden. It's at the corner of Dwight and Pine Street. The beginning of April, they'll start doing cleanup. It is a free garden. It is open to the public. It is like, if you need some lettuce for your salad, come through. If you want to, have a one-on-one with a friend, like the space is there for community to take ownership of. So the corner of Dwight and Pine.
That's exciting and good news. Thank you.
So thank you so much for everything you said. I just want to remind everybody to know this is the housekeeping part of the show where I say we're going to post everything Katie just said. So if you missed it and you don't have time to go back, we're going to post it on our show notes, on our website, and our Substack. So just subscribe to our Substack, and you'll just get it right, show notes right to your email, and you don't even have to go looking for it. And then you'll get any other random pieces we put out. There's a lot going on, so please, as always, subscribe there and go on your social media and follow Neighbor to Neighbor, where they will also be able to share their updates and their stuff. And we're going to share all the links that would get you in contact with Neighbor to Neighbor. So if you're interested in helping out or learning more before you help out, because we do encourage doing your own thorough research and critical thinking. Don't take everything we say as gospel. We can be wrong. We're not wrong here, but you know, I like to encourage our listeners to please not only follow our information that we like to be transparent with, but be discerning and question it. And we gladly take retractions and edits seriously if they're well warranted. Please email us or contact us if you have anything you want to share with us. As always, you can email us. We do journalism too, so if we can set it up so it's confidential. There's a lot of shady stuff in Holyoke specifically, but everywhere. These local governments run like mobs, and we're thankful for organizations like Neighbor to Neighbor solidifying power in the community so that they can approach and have peaceful discussions and hopefully fruitful. Like what Joanne and I do is a lot of yelling into the microphone. But this is the work. We motivate, and then other people do the work. And we also do our stuff too. Like it's not a policing who does what. It doesn't have to be too formal by everybody's ability. It's accepted. So thank you so much, Katie. Like your work, your advocacy, you know, going there as a citizen of Holyoke to voice my opinion about ShotSpotter, and seeing bootlickers and people that don't think critically or question, just want the argument to stop. Seeing them just roll over and say, we love the police, they're not a gang, all this stuff. And then to see these people I don't even know, represented by Neighbor to Neighbor, organizing on their own about an issue I'm very upset about. And it made me not feel so fucking alone. Because sometimes when you're sitting on your phone, again, capitalism's designed to isolate you. You're sitting on your phone, you're scrolling, and it's my feed is not fun like fucking cats and dogs. It is propaganda watch, and it's depressing as fuck. So seeing other people doing the work, oh my God, it's so wonderful. So thank you so much. That's from the bottom of my heart. And my wife, who also lives in Holyoke, obviously, she wanted to send along her thanks as well. So we appreciate all the work you do. And everybody, please go check out Katie check out Neighbor to Neighbor and all the links Katie mentioned. Joanna, do you have any other thoughts before we let Katie get back to her life?
I just completely agree that Neighbor to Neighbor is such a wonderful resource, and I'm so thankful that they're in Western Mass. When I was running for select board in the town of Montague, I definitely looked for organizations like Neighbor to Neighbor and was hoping there'd be something like that in Franklin County. I did find some like organizations up here that were really helpful, but I think it's awesome, just like a shout out for Springfield and Holyoke to have this wonderful resource that is available to them, and they really need it. And I know you mentioned a few towns out east as well. I would just urge all of our listeners, if you want to get involved, like Spence said, like it could be helping spread the word online if you're not able to join in meetings, or it could be direct advocacy or work. It could be starting your own garden, because there's a garden space now, and that is, I don't know, growing your own food, in my opinion, is radical. So please do it. And thank you for creating that space, Neighbor to Neighbor and Katie, for the community, because I do think it is such a beautiful way to connect with the community, and to grow your own food is such a wonderful, I don't know, I think it's a wonderful thing to be able to do as someone who gardens myself. And it's kind of nice to watch things grow as it gets warmer out and sunnier out. So it's also a kind of nice and fun thing. But so Katie, thank you for telling us about all of the potentially negative, but also wonderful things that are going on in the community, because I know it's, you know, there are some really good things too. And I really hope that we can get you back on if you ever would like to platform any specific topic. And really, yeah, just thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all reaching out. Yeah, hit me up to talk about an office of tenant protection, because that's about to happen in Holyoke. We're gonna make it happen. And yeah, you know, I love this job. I love what I do. I need to do this work, right? I have a kid. I'm working class. I need to do this work. My life depends on it. But my job is literally building relationships, right? Like that is what I get to do for work. I get to learn about people. I get to engage with people. I get to watch them like build power and find their own power and like use it in a way to build a world that works for them, that is fulfilling. And so like yeah, it's thank you for having me. And yeah, that's what this work is about, is like just building relationships. So thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Take care.
Thank you so much, Katie. Have a good one.
Bye.
Well, thank you, Katie, and neighbor to neighbor. Joanna, that was a wonderful, wonderful conversation, really. I mean, obviously I got dark with my Chief Pratt obsession. I'm teasing myself, audience. I don't have an obsession. It's an appropriate amount of anger towards a person that significantly governs all of our lives. So
Yeah, he does suck. I don't.
you want to clip that? There is that sentence after that where let's calibrate here. Let's calibrate. This motherfucker has a lot of power, and he's above us, and it's proven. The proof's in the pudding. Right, Joe?
Yeah, and like Katie said, it's not just like us having issues with the police. Like
Right.
these are issues. It's like I'm not just like, oh, I don't like the cops, or like I don't like him. It's not. I don't even like. I could not know Chief Pratt's name. Literally, I would.
Yeah, we're not libertarians.
I literally wished I didn't know his name because it would be easier.
We're not libertarians.
No, I'm not a libertarian.
We don't see cops as obstacles. That's
Well,
so when somebody
well, I can't.
no, they're not as inherently obstacles.
Oh.
You know, the libertarians, this is just my opinion, but the libertarians, they don't care about good outcomes for the community. They just don't want cops to impede on them.
They only care about themselves. It's
so that could be pedophilia to fireworks. It could be as benign as like not wanting to run your vehicle to regulation, to I want to traffic human beings. Like that's those people. They don't like cops. We're not those people. We just want a fucking better, safer place to live, and we want that elsewhere, and we know how interconnected it is. It's not just wanting it in Western Mass. It needs to happen from East Palestine, Ohio to Palestine. Like it just
straight up. All of it needs to be overturned and done. Our society is sick with violence, and the tool it's a tool of the system. So again, like we don't not like the police. I don't like the system, and I don't like the tools that are used. I know right now I'm calling the police tools, and that makes me kind of laugh inside.
Job is a tool, and it's choice. Not dehumanize.
It is a choice.
So the Blue Lives Matter thing, you can't dehumanize a job. Sorry. You can dehumanize people for the type of job they do, I guess. But when we say all cops are bastards, we're not talking about the individual. We're talking about the job itself literally can't do what it promises. It's not designed to do that. It's a lie. And my favorite running joke in my head is when I'm rolling through Holyoke, on the cop car front quarter panels, on one side it says quotation marks, protection serve, and then on the other side it says America's finest in quotation marks. So it's like they're even like kind of laughing at us, like, yeah, protect and serve and America's finest. They don't mean it that way, but like grammatically, that's how I'm reading it. And it's like, yeah, you couldn't protect and serve if you tried. Like if people are being evicted from their homes, why are we showing like the need? If it was about people, the need would find this person a home, not make sure they vacate a premise to go be home. So it just shows the priority. We prioritize the property versus the person.
Right. Well, capitalism. And I think overall, again, it's not a matter of not liking the police. It's a matter of what they represent, how much money they take away from the community in terms of resources that could go to people who may, be any of us working class individuals, and, to just improving a community. And like we just talked about, like ShotSpotter and overtime to the police is not improving your community. when only 2% of crimes committed are typically actually solved by the police. And so I'm saying this with the calmest, nicest NPR voice I have, because the frustration overall with people at this point who think maybe Spence and I are a little too radical, or the people that we, like we didn't come up with these ideas. So like the abolitionists who, that we listen to and follow, and the research that we've looked at, if you can really sit back and think like, yeah, okay, the system we have is fine. You're sorely mistaken. You're wrong. You need to really evaluate like what you're listening to. And I'm sorry if that's a hard pill to swallow. And this is the final thing I have to say, which I've said in the past, to all police officers, if you don't like what we had to say, if you're listening, if you're someone who has a family member who's a police officer, and like, oh, they just wanted to help their community, you can help your community without a gun, especially without a gun. And there are a number of jobs. So I would urge police officers who want to help their community, like, be active, quit your job and do something where you can really help others. I know your pension and your union is the most forceful in the country, and you hold cities hostage with propaganda for safety. So, I mean, really, do you want to help communities, or do you want to do that? And that's my call to police officers and to citizens and or friends. You may think, again, that me and Spence are too radical. Again, we did not come up with any really of the ideas regarding abolition that we share with you, and most of it is related to research. And so I just want people to know that. I know we say that all the time, but please be aware of what's happening. If you have children, especially if you care about the future for all of us, the system is broken, and I hope that you can
Not
eventually.
broken.
Well, I know. So the system is,
It's broken. It doesn't work for us. Let's just put that. It doesn't work for us, the working class folk. And I co-sign literally everything you just said times 10. And I'm even going to be rare here, and I'm going to be nice to police. And I'm going to say this out loud. When I see a police cruiser, and I know that their job inherently puts the community in danger, as the Holyoke police audit even said, they are a significant risk to their community. I know that's cop speak for give us more money or else, but I take that at literal. I take it literally, and I see it literally, and I see somebody that is going to be put also into an unnecessary risky situation because of their training. I understand they get paid more. They might be brainwashed. They might be white supremacists. They might just be totalitarian dickheads at their heart. Like, that's not the conversation I want to have. I also don't want people employed with my money to be put at risk. That's me being a benevolent co-working class person, even though I think you're a class traitor. If you want to help the community and public safety, in a new reimagined world where how wealth gets distributed differently and how people's needs get met, we'll have significantly less need for armed things anywhere. If people's needs are met, we don't have violence. It's proven out by the data. And the main reason I want to abolish altogether is because I want to burn the imagery. I want to burn the colors. I want to get rid of all that, because no matter what happens, even if you overhauled policing as is, people are going to have a trauma response to those symbols, to those words, and then the trust will never come back between security agents and its civilians. And right now we have accepted that they're an occupying army. I mean, we have podunk police in Eastern Mass calling themselves paramilitary. As Laura Saylor in a previous interview has mentioned, they think they're paramilitaries. Militarized against who? Definitely not Iraqis or anybody coming from elsewhere in the world. It's not Canadians. And maybe they think MS-13 from Mexico, which is actually found in Los Angeles, not Mexico, is going to invade us. I'm sorry, they actually think it's the civilians are the insurgents, and part of it is because their job is to protect property and capital. So we are insurgents. That's why graffiti is a crime, because you're defacing a piece of property. But you could deface another human being and you might get away with it. They solve less than 2% of crimes that are reported. So you're more likely to get in trouble for fucking vandalism than hurting another human being.
Yeah, and I'd like
It's all about reframing the context for me. That's why I always have to do even when I myself am about to fall for some, like propaganda where I'm like, when I get beaten down, I'm like, yeah, what do you do with Jeffrey Epstein? It's like, well, Jeffrey Epstein wouldn't fucking exist. He wouldn't have the consolidated power.
Well, yeah, I mean, in this, and you're right, in these systems, it does kind of give the scary dark side of things kind of all of the power.
Yeah, once you consolidate power, of course you're gonna have these more extreme things, and then that's because we've created the boogeyman actually exists.
Fucking Epstein, though. I may have to fucking cut that.
No good.
I don't know.
Saying in general, it's like, yeah, we got monsters running around. Why? It's because of the system of profit and capital and whatever. So I think Joanna and I could ramble all day about this, and we should probably just remind everybody, if they want to hear us rant, they can go to our social media pages where we have snippets of our rants, whether it's on Twitter or Instagram or wherever, our stories. We have day-to-day interactions. So Joanna could riff on this all day. So we should probably get on with the show.
Well, I guess I have one final thought that I would like to say to people, and I don't know if I've said it before, but it's just like listening to the founding fathers for me. Like, why can't we revise things when they're old? Like, we're listening to people who wore white wigs on their head, ripped their slaves' teeth out of their mouth, and then wore them as their own teeth. And then those old white dudes' decisions that formed most of the systems in our society that we still follow are the things that everyone would just like to keep moving, like, because it's tradition, I guess. Makes no sense. So, like, if you are in a job and you find a new efficient way to do something, I change what I'm doing, I write it on my SOP, and I do something more effectively. Same thing with my job. If I was only 2% effective, I would actually probably get fired, even with a union. So I just want to throw that out there for people. Just want to throw that out there and leave that ball in your court.
And also, like, what crimes, like we were talking with Katie, it's like, why are they going after sweeps for guns, right? When there's wage theft, where there's landlords running shanties.
Well, we know why. They need to fill the prisons.
Right, and they need to fill the prisons because of the 1980s and 90s criminal laws that were passed to suppress the left wing. I actually saw Mike Lee. I think it was Mike Lee of Utah, the senator. I think I saw a clip of him. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but it was a current member of Congress, a Republican, saying we need to go back to what we did in the 60s and 70s when we squashed the radical left. Then they flat out admit that COINTELPRO Pro and all the things they did to take out Malcolm X, and then in black communities and black power and any marginalized community with, the crack and cocaine laws in the 80s and marijuana, et cetera, and private prisons, all the things. They're just like straight, like, they're not even coding it like they did back then. Now they're just like, let's go back to the good old days where we locked up our adversaries based on laws we passed. Laws are human constructs. It was illegal. It was illegal until 1993 federally to do sodomy.
I mean, a woman could
repeal that law until 1993.
A woman couldn't have the things women couldn't do is so long. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is that one's terrible too. But like, even just like me being able to vote, have a credit card. I mean, I don't know. Of course, crazy conservative, not crazy. Of course, white men would,
because it's not all white men, it's liberal men too. They like to say, oh, that's in the past. That's in the past.
No, but they also want to go back to the past. Like, of course, in my opinion, I'm sorry, but if you're a white male or a male in power, like adjacent to power, then your whiteness basically is you're adjacent to whiteness if you're in a power role. And you think that we should be going back to a time when marginalized individuals were basically treated like non-humans, except for white males, basically, or people with a lot of money. Like, I don't know what to say to you. Like, you are misguided, and these are people we should not have in our government. Like, this is why I can't watch federal level shit until like daily, because
Yeah,
I
don't.
can't. I used to be all about like watching like C-SPAN constantly, and the last 10 years, I can't watch the daily stuff. It's just, again, we are stuck in a constant revolving door of shit. And I'm
Engagement and
yeah, and like I don't know, I'm sorry. I've said this in other episodes. When my first year I got to vote, I was 18 years old. George Bush, George W. and Al Gore were who I got to vote for. I voted for Al Gore, obviously, but then I got to watch what would happen for the next, I don't know, until now. What would happen if
fact about that so that court case that was put before the Supreme Court that won it for George W. Brett Kavanaugh worked on that. The current Supreme Court Justice, extreme radical traditional Catholic Brett Kavanaugh, with multiple credible sexual assault allegations and just general buffoonery, ghoulishness, 1980s Gordon Gekko rich kid shit. Like, guy is a walking fucking definition of a Chad, bro, failing upwards. So yeah, he was integral actually in that whole bullshit. So we've been getting fucked since then, and like we've been getting well, the working class has always been getting fucked,
and like voting was,
especially our black and brown brothers and sisters have been getting it tenfold. And
for like that situation, and for, I'm sorry.
No, you're sorry. You're good. I'm just these fucking ghouls, man. You can't even say it was like we've been getting fucked for 20 years. It's like we're always getting fucked. So negative.
It's just like the if things mattered to the people in the positions at the federal level, in my opinion, if like democracy mattered and our votes really actually mattered on either side, someone would have gone after the electoral college at this point in time too. So I just think there are a lot of things for people to think about. Like, I don't know, you shouldn't be like, you should be critically aware of everything. To hold things to only because of tradition or precedent, we could still have slavery, and we do actually because of the 13th Amendment. And I won't end on like a super sad note because we have other things to talk about, and there's a community garden coming to Holyoke, but I really hope people can absorb some of the things that Katie said as a former incarcerated individual and someone that works with her community, and who is not, she is doing great things for her community, and not someone that I would ever have wanted to experience incarceration. I don't want anyone to experience incarceration in the United States. If you do, then you've never been there, or you're a ghoul.
Yeah, or you just have and or aren't thinking it through to its logical conclusion. We just kind of, and this is where propaganda is a big problem, because it makes you, seeing the imagery and the concepts over and over again in entertainment and or news clippings, like justifying the police presence and the police state, the everyday stuff. You're so inundated with it that you think you know what it's about. But then when you actually sit down, like Joanna and I and many others, I wanted to shout out Miss O'Lurin on Twitter, Olay. She straight up has a minute-and-a-half video that so decisively and poignantly calls mass incarceration slavery, no ifs, ands, or buts, because of the 13th Amendment. And her whole argument is wonderful, and I recommend anybody look her up. She's just amazing. She is so good at what she does at communicating, and her ideas, her values line up. She's one of those people where it's like, dude, they're special. So I would like to give a shout out to at Miss O'Lurin, OLURIN, and she's on Twitter and Instagram. But she's an abolitionist advocate and a public defender.
Olay is the best.
Like, but all these people, but like whether it's Katie Talbot or Olay doing their work, all these people unfortunately have been touched by this system, and that's what motivates them. And that seems to be the majority of the people doing that work. So anybody that feels out of step because like, oh, I didn't experience that, I don't know what I'm talking about, all you have to do is just tap into humanity and just say, listen, no matter what happens to somebody does to somebody else, should we torture them? Should we control their lights, control when they eat, control when they sleep? Should we do that? Because that's what happens in prisons, and that's like what they're proud of doing, and that's like one thing they advertise is like we take away their liberty. And is that not torture, everybody? Like, that's torture in my book. People, yeah, if you want to take their quote unquote liberty away, like, yeah, somebody murders somebody, okay, we have to have a discussion on how to, but that's victim and community based. That's based case by case, unfortunately. So every community is going to be a little bit different and how they feel and how the crime went down. But hopefully, if we address all these other problems, those crimes will lessen. So either way, we were saying more police, more cops don't fix this. And, you know, I want to use this as a transition to our favorite segment. Joanna, are you excited?
Always.
It's ghoulery and tomfoolery, everybody. It's the usual suspects. It's our friends over at the Holyoke PD. You know, Chief Pratt showing his adept skill at punishing his officers. And I understand, I bet their union was involved. I'm not saying his hands may be tied. You know, the unions are really strong. But so this headline comes courtesy of, it was posted on the Shoestring by one of our favorite reporters, Dusty Christensen. Follow him on Twitter at DustyC123, and follow the Shoestring at _Shoestring. They're wonderful local journalistic entities. They do great work. They're spot on. They do not have any red flags when it comes to journalism. It's a very tight ship over there. So we highly recommend giving them a follow. And it's pretty dumb. So here's the headline. Records. Holyoke cop pointed gun at fellow officer's car. And essentially, Holyoke Police Department had to launch an internal investigation because a sergeant is serving a 5-day suspension. It's not clear if it's paid or unpaid, but I'm guessing it's paid.
Since they're not saying, I'm guessing too.
After an internal investigation found that in September 2021, he unholstered his gun because he was upset at 2 detectives. So I'm guessing they were playing clothes in a regular car. And he was in his uniform and obviously had his service weapon with him. So he points his weapon unholstered and points it. And the way he wasn't aiming at a person, but he was aiming at the wheels or something. He said it would be a shame if something were to happen or you weren't able to use such a beautiful car. You know, it's just Joanna.
I mean, this is like what Kate.
I'll read the story. We'll share it in our show notes. But that's just the tip of the iceberg on that, and that's the internal investigation. So it's like in my opinion, it was probably worse than him pointing it at an inanimate object that 2 people were in. So it doesn't make it look good, because it's like, what, he's threatening property damage. I thought cops are supposed to protect property. So he's not even that's really why he's in trouble. He threatened property.
So like, this blows my mind. Like, if I went out with like a water gun and pointed it at a cop car, I feel like they would either shoot me potentially, or I would maybe do time for threatening a police officer. So I just want people to think about that. Like, these individuals carry guns, and then they're able to just decidedly like off duty, like get angry. And because they can't control their anger, which means, in my opinion, they shouldn't be in a position where they're supposed to be de-escalating things and holding firearms. But anyway, I mean, besides that, then you just go and you like point your gun at someone's car because you're mad at them. Like, I don't know about you, Spence, but like, when we have an argument, I don't come point my gun at your car. And I think if we did that and the police found out,
like, even in a kitchen,
like
waving your chef knife,
yeah,
like if lifting the chef knife off the cutting board, that's fighting
behavior.
Like,
Yeah.
Even if you're just doing like an Italian, talking with your hands, it's a no-no, because you're gonna hurt yourself. you're gonna hurt somebody else, even if it's in like jest. Like, what if you're like laughing, the fucking knife goes? So it's a no, and that's in kitchens, and we get paid dirt money, and we're all fucked up, and everybody knows we're fucked up. And I guarantee you, if you raise a knife at somebody in a kitchen, you're probably gonna get fired.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you just are. I mean,
yes.
there's been scenario. It's not 100% because kitchens are kind of the Wild West, but like I've been involved in some skirmishes, witness and or participant of heated summertime in kitchens and things getting rowdy. But yeah, if anybody actually did that at the job, they're gone.
Oh, and it's not even just you're gone. So I think if you did this anywhere, even just, I mean, I have a personal story. I'm not going to tell everyone the details. I'll share it with Spence after. I haven't shared the article with him yet, so people can find it, but you probably won't know the name. But my nephew was finally sentenced, and they wanted him to serve 5 years in prison for pointing a gun at someone when he was angry. So I find it interesting that when a police officer does it, they get a 5-day suspension, potentially with pay. But when a civilian does it, the state would hope to put them in prison for up to 5 years, potentially longer.
They just pointed at another civilian. Imagine if you pointed at an agent of the state.
Exactly. That's
that would be the worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest with you, even worse than a cop, because a cop is still just a working class scab at the end of the day. They use funerals of their own as propaganda pieces, so they don't respect their own officers. The institution doesn't. The other officers don't. They're all prop pieces. They're simple-minded, hierarchy-driven weirdos, and that's how I deal with it. I don't think they're particularly smart. I just call them weirdos. They're fucking weirdos. Anybody who wants to be a cop, it's weird. It's weird, man. Like, who wanted to be the fucking hall monitor growing up? Like, it's weird. Like, most of us don't want to do that for obvious reasons. It's fucking weird.
And I'm not trying to condone violence, or nor do I think like a person that I personally know should
be off the force just for like, if just looking at it as a pure employment thing. How can he work with these people?
Yeah, so there's the thing right there. And then on top of that, like, he must have anger management issues. He's using a firearm completely unsafely. And again, I'm not condoning civilians taking a gun and settling things that way either. Like, I don't think that that's the correct way to handle something. But we do have mental health issues and different things going on in the society. And like Spence said, also a epidemic, in my opinion, a gun epidemic. So I mean, these are
the people that are going after improper gun use, and they're the ones that doing the licenses.
Well, yeah, and they're allowed to do whatever they want. But then if a civilian has makes a mistake, then they'll use you as an example and basically ruin your life.
Right. So anybody that's not done license to carry or doesn't know about firearms who's listening, and I'm sure people that listen to that are into firearms, they probably know more than me. I'll be frank. But one thing I do know is that if you're credibly accused, like say you have a couple witnesses of you pulling your legal firearm in a situation where you don't have the right, like protecting your last line of defense and you're in your bedroom, but like, let's just say you're having an argument at a picnic and you pull your firearm out, not even point it, just use it to menace. Dude, the first thing they're doing is they're coming to your house with a warrant, a bench warrant, to at least seize your weapon. Because you've been proven, because there's been multiple civilians, eyewitnesses, they'll trust an eyewitness. No, they'll take that word. That's what's crazy is you could, if you had some bad actors that were good liars and coordinated, they could conspire in theory to disarm you by saying, I saw him pull a gun. It was inappropriate. As a safety precaution, the police department that issued the license to carry, they reserve the right to come take those fucking guns. Hey man, you've been accused, and until we straighten this out, we're taking the guns away.
Well, and if you're not using something that's so deadly safely, like this officer, like you said, I don't know how he gets to go back and use a gun again. Like, he seems.
But how could you work with this motherfucker after they?
I would be afraid to. He seems unhinged. He must have mental issues and like anger problems, which we all may have. But I don't have a gun.
He's a sergeant.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's really embarrassing for the city and the police department because, Like Katie
So
just
keep in
mentioned, they
mind-
had $1 million worth of overtime, and they're gonna end up sucking Holyoke dry for a stock spotter too. Like, and then they're allowed to point their guns at each other and then just go home for 5 days. And I'm guessing, since it doesn't say if he was paid or not, he's paid. But I could be wrong. Please prove me
We'll
wrong.
find that out. But odds are, I mean, the fact that it's only a 5-day suspension is like, yo, again,
Joke.
the
It's a joke.
chief would revoke my the chief has the power to revoke anybody in this city's license to carry. So let's say one of the counselors, for example, I don't know who has guns and I don't care, but let's just say like one of the counselors that was critical of the police, has firearms. They could, in theory, pull his fucking permit
Even if they point, look, so
just because they felt threatened by him.
a good example though, like what if a counselor pointed a gun at another counselor? Like that would end up being like an arrest, assault charge, potentially like more than an assault charge. And like, I don't know, like, I'm sorry, but the way that this was handled is so unethical in my opinion. So I think it's a great topic for foolery and tomfoolery, because people should know, like, this is crazy.
And the best part about this Ghoulery and tomfoolery, and I feel like my goal is to always somehow tie in Gobot Goebbels, aka Captain Moriarty at the Holyoke Police. He's the director of communications for the PD, so he's their PR pitch bot. He is his. They didn't respond to comment, but the only thing he said was, the officer has been suspended 5 days. That's it. That's all he'll say.
That makes sense though. That's like a good PR move from a cop.
We didn't find out about it, that this dangerous cop has been out there working. This is after the appeal, so it's sustained. This is happening. He's serving his suspension. So this person has been,
I mean, taking his week off, but yes.
he's the 17th highest paid employee in the city Holyoke. He pulled in $154,000, almost $155,000 last year.
My blood pressure is going up, Spence. It's going up.
Yeah, it's not great, Dan. And so next time you hear them, there's nobody named Dan here. I'm stealing that from another podcast. I guess that's this.
Call me by my name.
Joanna. I shouldn't call you Joe. Joe's nobody has the right to call Joanna Joe.
It's fair. It's fair. Our nicknames for each other.
Ever interact with Joanna, please refer her to Joanna. I get away with it for some reason.
You're one of two people that calls me Joe, actually.
I think I just, like, when I first met you, I decided that you were like in quick form, you were Joe and or Jojo.
Yeah, you're the only person that I let call me Jojo. Even.
And I feel like the only reason I'm allowed to is because it's like, I know I don't do it that often.
And I know coming from you, it's endearment. I like when other people use my name, so thank you for saying that. And I think you like the same thing. So
when actually I only get annoyed when the only thing that bothers me is when people ask me why I use my middle name. Like strangers.
Yeah,
it's different if
you
know me, you ask me the reason, I'll tell you why, and I'll tell everybody. No, it's like my mom named me that. That's my fucking name. I don't know, like, when you're a kid, they tell you your name, and that's what I wrote down. And almost like at this point, I do it because it annoys me that I'm breaking that people call you out every now and then for breaking some sort of social norm by dropping your middle name. And it's like, well, my middle name isn't random. It was given to me to carry on a maiden name. And so like somebody that was married into my father's family that dropped their maiden name, my mom inserted that into our names. So that's where Spencer Fox come from. I'm shouting out like somebody my mom on my dad's side of the family and my mother liked. And, it's the little things. And don't question, don't tone police, don't fucking civility police, don't that's like the number one thing people will do to me on social media, or if they know my full name, like, oh, you're cool, you go by 3 names. It's like, it's my fucking name, dude. Shut the fuck up and just carry on. Like, I'll call you Munchmaster 69 because that's the only name you got on here, bro. Like, if your name was Eric, I'd call you Eric, but you're not posting your name either, so you're a weirdo. And it's probably a cop. On the weed out, we definitely have a few few law enforcement stands, we'll call them, because don't want to accuse anybody of a job stolen valor. It's possible they're just rent-a-cops, but anyways, that's my random rant. Gobot Goebbels is Captain Moriarty over at Holyoke PD. it's noticeable that he doesn't comment to certain outlets at all. He doesn't respond to comments, but he only typically talks to WWLP out of Springfield. So apparently he has a tight in, and this is where propaganda comes from. So they get the first story out, posted, and basically as a stenographer, the WWLP, they just repost the police press release and without any critical thought or pushback. So I feel like we need to support things like the shoestring, and especially commend and help support in any way we can Dusty Christensen's wonderful reporting. Shout out to Dusty C123 on Twitter, because he has been on it, especially about Holyoke police, but all over Western Mass. And without work from journalists like him and our frequent guest Andrew
Quamir. Yeah, Andrew's done a lot of good work too. Not necessarily.
I was trying to think of his handle. It's at Andrew.
I'm bad.
QM.
I'm bad with those. I'm sorry.
I want to make sure people get their handle. We'll post them, or you can find it on previous episodes. Andrew QMR and Dusty C123. I believe that's their handles on any platform they're on. Or you could search Substack. I know they post on their Substacks too, but they do great fact-based reporting from records requests, and that's why we focus so much attention on data and records. And it's how we need to get the community thinking to root out things like these police suspensions, because we would have never heard about it if it weren't for Dusty asking questions,
Yeah, and I think people also need to think about getting involved in their community. So if you're living in a community and you have something like Neighbor to Neighbor, where Katie is she's your neighbor, she's experienced a number of life events that she shared, that she can understand maybe a number of positions that you've been in, and she'll help you. Please don't feel alone. Please know that it may make you feel a little more empowered to have this community building ability. And like I said before, if the only thing you do is get yourself a garden plot, and that's the way you choose to be radical, awesome. Because it's just be a part of your community. Use the resources that are there so that you can show the people telling you that you have enough, that there are enough resources, that there are not enough resources. And
I wanted to highlight, just so everybody understands why something like gardening is radical and rebellious, is because food is something we all fucking need, like water and air. We need it. So give the middle finger to the produce section at Stop and Shop because you grew your own bell peppers, right? It's not even necessarily about saving money. It's about, we can do this. It's reminding yourself your roots as a human being. We can do this. Like, we can feed ourselves. We can take care of ourselves. It doesn't have to be on this micro homesteader level. It shouldn't be like we got to work as a community, but like any way you can give the middle finger to the corporate bullshit, I don't know, the ghoulery and tomfoolery, I guess, that of our everyday lives, how everything's a subscription service, and expensive as fuck, basically. So be radical, grow a bunch of peppers, make some pepper relish, and then you can enjoy it through the winter.
And as a gardener, it's somewhat therapeutic to watch things grow.
Put things in perspective. You get your hands in the dirt. So when somebody tells you to touch grass, I I pulled the weeds this morning.
Yeah. And I don't know, right now I'm looking at our seeds right now. So I have seeds for my garden, and then seeds that I'll give to Spencer and his wife Bridget for their garden. And I may give some to my mom. And because of the time of growing, right now I start certain seeds, it kind of gives you this sense of, I don't know, something wonderful to look forward to, which I think we sometimes all need. It's such a small thing potentially, but like Spence said, it's food. And I think that there are also, to make people aware, there are right to farm communities in Massachusetts, but there are big corporations and companies like Monsanto to be the number one in terms of seed issues and stuff like that, where it is radical to farm. You would never want to lose that right. And that's just, I just think it's a wonderful thing to have, to be able to just grow. It's not just radical, in my opinion. It's a privilege for me personally. So that's my 2 cents on gardening and how it gets you from March all the way to June kind of faster because you're planning and kind of going with your plans as you go. So you kind of have some stuff to do along the way as you get there.
Right. And watching the, the plants grow, it's very Jedi, I mean, not to be too much of a mainline sci-fi geek, or science fantasy. But it is very one, I like the winter for the same reason I like the summer. Like I like the death and the rebirth, I would have a hard time living in a monoclimate,
Not me.
so
I'd be okay.
yeah, I mean, physically, I guess it would be nice to like prepare, but the cycle is, it helps you like shed the skin and move on. And with this stuff we deal with here on the Weed Out, we got to have our ways of finding the joy. So I want to always thank everybody for sticking with us and supporting us and listening. Our numbers are growing, and it's through word of mouth and having such excellent guests that we are so fortunate to have want to come on and talk with us, such as Katie Talbot at Neighbor to Neighbor. So please support, whether it's Neighbor to Neighbor or something similar. Look into their background, look into how they're funded, look into their, do your research before you sign on. But these things is how we find our collective power, and it's decentralized. It's how we need to do stuff, and we just got to do what humans have done. Like, we just got to tap into our instincts. This is something humans have been doing for a long time. We can do it.
Absolutely.
And I want to leave everybody listening with a sense of, wow, whether it's us like ranting about Chief Pratt in the middle of all this wonderful things she's speaking about, we do have these devils that we have to deal with, like these ghouls, so to speak, these weeds that we got to pull. But we have to find the joy, and we have to find the things that keep us moving forward. So for Joanna, it's gardening, and for me, as well, but and enjoying.
And a number of other things. We're complex people, and
around you, and the things that just focus on that, and focus. That's the motivation. We want a healthy, vibrant, progressive, I guess, community where we're progressing, but not progressing towards productivity. We're just progressing towards a better life. And it's not about not working, it's about working for the right reasons. And it's definitely not for profit. We need to work for our betterment of our collective community. So I appreciate everybody listening to this. I appreciate you putting the word out. Please share with everybody. Go to our social media, follow us, like, subscribe, especially in the podcast. Reviews are great, help us get in the algorithm. Not that that's our main goal, but the more people we can reach out to, and hopefully inspire others to weed out nonsense in their backyards. So that's all I have to say from me today. I appreciate everybody, and please visit our website, www.theweedout.com.
I just want to thank everyone as well for listening. It's a process, and like Spencer said, thank you so much for following along. Thank you if you've been a guest. We've been so lucky and privileged to have wonderful, amazing people in the Western Mass community willing to come on and talk to us about all of these wonderful things they're doing. So I think focusing on that is a good thing, because think of the community that you have, even if you just reach out to some of those that we've talked to. Please do like, share, and give us feedback. As Spencer mentioned too, we don't make any money doing this, and we both work full time. So it would, if nothing else, that would be wonderful if you could do that for us. And if you can't, that's okay too. But I just wanted to throw that out there, and I hope you're well and that you take care of yourselves.